Hey, Megan, welcome to Quantum Messages. Thanks for joining the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, you've been studying Qigong for a while now, for about 4 to 4.5 years, correct?
It's actually more like 9.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Even longer. And how did you find Qigong? Tell us your story.
Sure. So originally, I found Qigong again 9 years ago when I was doing yoga at my gym. And I had a lot of anxiety and was having a hard time getting through life. And yoga had been really helping me for like, I don't know, 15 years since my early 20s or something. But I kept on injuring myself. And so I was going to my yoga class, probably limping or something. And I noticed these old women in another classroom down the hallway practicing Qigong. And they were like in their 80s and moving around. And I thought, that might be something that's more for me. So I started joining classes at the gym, and that's where I started Qigong, was taking class like 2 to 3 times a week just to kind of manage my stress. I didn't really think about it other than that. I learned a few forms. It was mostly based on physical movements, but we would talk about qi and energy flowing in our bodies, and it really helped me out. So then in 2020, that's when I really started practicing every day, very devoted practice. I had a bad, scary diagnosis, cancer diagnosis, and well, it was 2020, so we were all home doing nothing. And I found a Zhineng Qigong teacher who was teaching online every day, twice a day actually, and for free. And I was desperate. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't get a massage. I couldn't do anything. And I had this scary diagnosis, a lot of anxiety to deal with. And I just dove in. And this type of Qigong, the Zhineng Qigong, wisdom abilities Qigong, or sometimes it's called wisdom healing Qigong, really focuses on healing from incurable disease. And so I was inspired. At the time, I got this scary diagnosis, and I had been really doing everything right. Eating the best food, only organic, my kale smoothies all the time, exercising. I mean, I had checked off all the boxes. I was doing everything perfect. Ani, we knew each other then. And I got cancer. Like, how does that happen? Right. And I instantly knew that it wasn't about something physical. It was something inside of me that I hadn't looked at. And the phrase intergenerational healing was very, very present. And I had no idea how to address that at the time. I was really disconnected with my emotions and my body. But I knew that Zhineng Qigong would help me out. And so I just sort of started there and developed a daily practice that I still have to this day. And I wanted to talk a little bit. I mean, there's Qigong, which is sort of a kind of a physical-based practice. But this is the Quantum Messages show. And how I got into more consciousness work, pure consciousness work, was at some point I hit a roadblock in my Qigong practice with focusing just on the physical or just on, the qi movement in my body. And that's when I really dove into working more with the quantum realm and pure consciousness. Getting through cancer treatment, which I was merging the worlds, doing both conventional cancer treatment and healing myself with energy. And at some point, I had to go deeper. I had to go further. And so that's why now I focus mostly on a consciousness-based practice. There are still physical movements, but most of it's in the invisible realm.
So, what is the difference between the physical Qigong and physical practice and then the consciousness Qigong practice or pure consciousness?
So everything is qi, right? Like, everything is qi. And everything has, basically, we'll just call it 3 levels of qi. And those 3 levels of qi are like physical. So we have our physical bodies, right? This is what we usually think of as being real in the world. And then the more discrete version of Qi is sort of like energy. And that level goes all the way from, the Qi, maybe you can feel a movement in your hands, or when you're breathing, you can feel energy moving in your body, all the way to the quantum realm, which it's not something you feel with your sensory organs, but it's a very like fine form of Qi. And then the third level is the information level. So in pure consciousness, we're going kind of between that like quantum realm plus like into this realm where it's just information coming through, no sensory associations. It's all very, very fine. So in most Qigong that's practiced in the Western world, the main focus is on the physical and then like the body Qi. Like you do these various forms to get energy to flow through your body in certain ways to heal things or charge your different Qi centers up, etc. But there's not a lot of work put on like connecting outward towards like the greater quantum realms. And in Zhineng Qigong, that's the main focus of the practice, and that's where we're starting these days. Even with new students, starting with the consciousness work and then adding in some of the physical and more body Qi related practices after.
Are these the different levels of practice? So it's always starting with the physical practice and then going into the deeper, finer levels of consciousness? Or can it all be together?
Yeah, it's always together. These three are always married. It's just it's a way of thinking about it. It's a way of understanding. It's really a continuum. But what you focus on in your practice matters. So if you're putting primary focus on the body, that's going to give one result. And if you're putting primary focus on consciousness, it could give a different result. And when you're dealing with consciousness, this very, very fine form of like, again, quantum Qi, that's where you have the ability to create magic or miracles, right? That's where when people do things that you think are not possible, that's where they're working in the quantum realm, because things can change in the information realm. Hasn't been physicalized yet. And so you can go there into a place of infinite possibility. And if you're skilled and lucky, it's possible to pull out new outcomes. And since everything is changing in every moment all the time, if you have the skill to go into the quantum plus realm, pull out a new outcome, bring it back, and then like really ground it in the physical realm, believe in it, ground it, that's where we see these miracles, fast miracles occurring in Qigong work.
So because it's so fine, because the Qi is so fine and so, what's the word? Like you can't see it. It's not physical, so to speak. I mean, it's in the quantum, so it's obviously very fine energy. How, like, is it like a frequency that you're bringing down? Are you connecting to frequencies, or is it something beyond we cannot explain?
Beyond. So, it's in a realm beyond even the duality of particle and wave. And it's something that really needs to be experienced. So in this practice, we learn theory, there's books, and it's important to know the practice, but you have to do the work. You have to do the practice. It's kind of like, you don't need to believe in it. You just need to know it. And it's accessible. That knowing, understanding and knowing that invisible quantum, whatever you want, information realm is accessible to everyone, not just gurus who live on the mountains. And especially accessible these days because so many people are engaging with it.
So does the engagement with these realms allow for this consciousness to expand?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So when we engage with these realms, and the way that it's done with the most power in the practice that I do in Zhineng Qigong is we actually connect with a consciousness field with intention. And so this in this consciousness field is, literally anyone who's worked in this field of oneness or love or whatever in all space and time is included in it. And so when we connect to that, we connect with each other, we connect with that field. There is a reciprocal relationship. In nature, there's always a reciprocal relationship. We forget that in human reference frameworks, but in nature, it always exists. So when I practice, I make the field stronger, and it makes me stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty amazing to play with. I've been playing with it for several years, and you realize, that other people practicing literally improves your condition. So it's not just you healing yourself. There's no lone wolf or, hero's journey here. It's all of us joining together and connecting and adding to this field of oneness and love, and then creating a better life.
Mm-hmm. Who brought Qigong to the West and our modern life?
I'm not sure who brought it, but what I will say is in the 70s, when we could start traveling back and forth between the US and China, that's sort of when Qigong and really a lot of the Chinese medicine principles started filtering into the West. And at the time, there was a lot of Qigong, ancient Qigong lineages being practiced, and people were trying to bring them to the West. So in doing that, there's a translation process, trying to make them accessible to Western practitioners. And so that during the 70s and 80s, that was kind of what was going on. And so Zhineng Qigong was one of these traditions being brought to Western audiences. And it was developed by Grandmaster Peng Ming, or Dr. Peng. He is still alive. He is actually Western trained medical doctor who also in his family tradition and lineage also holds various Qigong lineages. He studied various ancient Qigong lineages. He's a master in many of them, and he synthesized Zhineng Qigong for the modern audience. And I think he started that in around 1988. But he wasn't the only one. There was a lot of people doing this. What made him special and different was that he was a scientist and medical doctor, so he wanted to approach it with a scientific lens. He wanted to do research. He wanted to study it. He wanted to figure out how to bring consciousness science into medicine. And so he opened a hospital or clinic, and he started experimenting, bringing people in with incurable diseases and teaching them simple methods, ancient methods for healing and vitality. And at some point, he realized they didn't need medicine anymore, that all they needed was qi and this practice. So the hospital, it's called the Huasha Center, and it's called the medicineless hospital because there was no medicine. And he started treating people, doing research and keeping data and figuring out what worked. And the more that he used the Qigong principles to help people with illness, the more, and trusted that, the more people recovered and got better.
What happened to the hospital?
So in the early 2000s, it had to shut down. And this happened for a variety of reasons. So at the time, there were, like I said, lots of other Qigong groups in China. And there was one group that was very large and decided to get political. And so Dr. Peng's work with the Huasha Center, the medicineless hospital, was never political. It was a hospital. People were healing there. He was doing research. But the Chinese government got really scared. At the Huasha Center, there were 4,000 patients at a time. I mean, this was huge, right? In America, we don't really understand the scale that things can get in China, but it was a huge center. They had 4,000 patients. They were also training teachers. and training all sorts of people. And they were trying to build actually an intentional community that would house 5,000 people. And so he was a major target by the Chinese government, and he had to go hiding for a bit. Now he just leads a simple life and writes books still. And he still has the brain information. Like he's the one bringing out new ideas and new instructions for all the teachers out there, but he does not teach and he doesn't make public appearances anymore.
Wow. So, I mean, I know that he did write a book about Qi theory, you know, and he wrote multiple books. But yeah,
all Chinese.
Some of them are translated right in English.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And is the Qi theory translated in English? I don't know if I titled that.
There's, I mean, well, let's see. I have a couple of his translated books here. Yeah, we have the methods of Zhineng Qigong, science, and the later methods. So these are two of his books that I have here. They're tricky because they're very, very dense and they're hard for a beginner to come in and grasp. My experience with the lineage is that much of the teaching is a transmission. Like I said before, you can learn all the theory, but then you have to practice it to really have it in your bones and to really understand it. And so I think for me, and I think for most, Western people, learning just the simple basic theory from a teacher of the lineage who has received the transmissions, and then practicing is probably the best way of learning. And then, going back and forth and looking at some of the more complicated books to check things out. But it's been, speaking of quantum messages, it's been awesome to see how just from receiving the very basic theory, and some of it we've discussed today already, and then doing the practice as taught, all the blanks are filled in. It's just you receive the information, you have aha moments, and then this increases when you start applying it to daily life. And so that's a huge part of Zhineng Qigong that I didn't see when I was studying other forms, is that applying it to life is very important. And when you do that, you end up practicing, like 8 hours a day, because you're practicing when you're in a difficult conversation, or practicing it when you're having an anxious time. So anyhow, it's a lineage that it's there in the quantum realm, and you can study it, but then it's always available for you in practice.
Can you give us an example of a practice that you do, a daily practice that you do to connect to the consciousness?
Yeah, I can. So the consciousness practice, it starts in the Senji Palace, which is upper dantian, centered in the center of the head, behind the third eye, down from the top of the head, and in from the third eye. And we start there. That's the seat of our consciousness. And we have various sounds and sacred words that we say to sort of open up that space. We open up our inner observer observing itself, like the I am state. And we expand the state, we purify the state, and the energy or chi in there, and then we spread that to our whole body. And this process, it's called organizing the consciousness field. It looks like a meditation, but really it's a high level consciousness practice where we're really connecting to the oneness and connecting every cell in our body to the oneness. And it takes about, one can do it quickly, but when we do it together, we often practice together on Zoom. It's about 15 minutes. So we kind of go through every aspect of the body and really connect every aspect with pure consciousness. And then from that state, we'll do some simple movements. And the idea is The state is the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
Movements are for us to practice doing two things at the same time, right? It's like rubbing your stomach and hitting your head. Like, can you stay in that pure consciousness? We call it Mingjue state. Can you stay in this Mingjue state while you play with energy between your hands?
Mm-hmm.
Stay in the Mingjue state while you pour Qi down, and if you're coming out of the Mingjue state, then you go back and just gently remind yourself and start a new pattern. And then from that practice, it becomes so much easier to translate that into daily life. I mean, imagine living your daily life in a pure consciousness state, in a stable pure consciousness state. It would change how you interacted with everything. It would change your whole life. And so that's the practice that we're doing. That's how you create a whole new life for yourself.
Mm-hmm. You and I have talked a lot in the past about Qi purification. Can you go into that a little bit? Qi purification moments and Qi purification in general?
Yeah. So traditionally, Qi purification, or they call it Qi reaction, a traditional Qi reaction is you've started practicing, you're opening up energy, right? So right off the bat, you're starting practicing, you're opening up blockages, things are coming out. And when you open up blockages, just imagine a clogged river. The garbage, all the stuff behind the dam, it starts flowing through your system. So classic Qi reactions are things like nausea, headaches, diarrhea, things like that. And they're pretty common when you're up leveling, or when you've found a new spot that needed the Qi to be opened in. But in my experience, Qi reactions can also be emotional outbursts. They can be just, a week of feeling sad and crying. A lot of emotions can come up during Qi reactions. And I really like the framing. For example, say I'm feeling really irritable and I yell at somebody, rather than saying, well, you're yelling and irritable, bad, bad, bad. I like framing of, well, I'm having a Qi reaction, which is true, right? I mean, something got let loose inside of me. I'm feeling agitated right now. Nothing good, bad, right, or wrong with it. It's just an opportunity, really, to help that Qi flow through that spot that was blocked, get through the situation. So, my family, for example, when someone gets angry or freaks out, we call it Qi reaction or Qi purification. And it's just a nicer way of saying, a more useful way of framing the same situation. It helps one frame the situation as something that's like hopeful and involves like healing and improving, rather than something wrong with me. So in general, in Qigong, we see these kind of things. We like to see them as a positive, like moving us towards healing, not as a setback.
I'm just curious if the grandmasters or the masters experience these Qi purifications as well.
I'm sure they do. Living in a human body,
right?
Even if you're enlightened and you know all the answers and stuff, you're still in a human body. And so they're the same as us. Yeah.
So lately you've been involved, or actually the past, I think 2 years now, you've been involved with the World Consciousness Community. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Master Wei is your teacher. Can you tell us a little bit about Master Wei and the World Consciousness Community?
Yeah, I can. So Master Wei Qiqong, or we call him Teacher Wei. He's very humble. He actually came to the Huasha Center to study with Grandmaster Pong right after high school. In fact, I think the story is he went to his high school graduation and took the first train out and went to the Huasha Center. And so he was probably about 18, and he was really struggling with depression. Really, really heavy depression. And as the story goes, he went to the Huasha Center, he became a teacher, and he became one of their one of their doctors that was, or healers. They didn't really have, I mean, they had normal medical doctors, but everyone was a teacher or a student or a practitioner. They didn't have patients and doctors. It was teachers and students or practitioners. So in any case, he went on to be responsible for people in the terminal illness area. And so he would oversee hundreds of patients at a time. Remember the scale of this, 4,000 patients at a time. And so he's a really powerful healer. He studied with Dr. Pong for years and years and planned to spend his whole life at the Huasha Center. And then it had to close down in the early 2000s, and his whole life shattered. And he went into severe depression. And as the story goes, he just didn't know what to do with his life, right? I mean, what's he supposed to do? He's trained in this Qigong, and now he can't even teach it in China. It's not allowed. And so he went to the top of a mountain and he received enlightenment. And after that, he started just traveling around the world to teach, to just try to find people to teach to outside of China. Now, fast forward, he's the lead teacher of the World Consciousness Community, which is it's a worldwide group of people that practice Qigong together. And there's people that translate. So Teacher Wei speaks in English. So if you speak English, you can receive his teachings directly in your language. But there's translators that translate. It's a huge community, thousands of people. And in the community, people practice together and work through challenges together and heal together. So I am certified as a Qigong teacher and healer now with Teacher Wei. I received the final transmissions in June of this year, 2024. And it's just, for me, it's been a community that is so full of genuine, unconditional love. Not in a like fixated, weird, creepy way, just like simple, unconditional love, meeting me where you're at, and sending each other good information. And there's people that heal all the time. Just yesterday morning, literally a woman in my class who we practice with every day, not every day, almost every day, 4 days a week. She had metastasized cancer, and she came in and said that it's mostly gone. Like, wow, that's amazing, right? So, and it doesn't always, you don't always get exactly what you want, but there's just so much good information in that community, and it's so big. So I've been enjoying it.
I was going to ask you a question. Since you meet in Zoom and you're not everyone's meeting are people meeting in person? No, it's all.
There are retreats sometimes, but I haven't been involved in too much of that yet.
So I was just wondering, how do people heal when they're meeting in Zoom?
Well,
how do you think, or just online?
That's the quantum realm, right? Yeah. So when you do this practice, you learn very quickly for yourself. No one has to tell you that the work we do is beyond space and time. So it doesn't really matter. Now, of course, being in person is wonderful. And, us in physical bodies, we tend to really, really believe something if it's in person physically. So we don't have to rely so much on our creativity and imagination to bring that reality to us. But my personal experience is that practicing online, even practicing from recordings, it doesn't matter, because where we're practicing together and the space that we meet each other in, that field, is completely outside of space and time. And in some ways, being able to do this practice from my home, where I am nervous system regulated, comfortable, have my biomat, being able to do the practice from home is actually more effective for me in some ways. I still like to, when I can, meet up with people and practice in person, but it's really cool to see how the new technology of our time can combine with this old technology and create a huge opportunity for us to really heal and bring more love and peace to the whole world.
Mm-hmm. And is this what Master Wei is? Do you think that's his path right now, is to bring this love and unity and oneness to the world and teach? Because we're so divided and with polarity at this moment in time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, a way of looking at it is our culture right now is experiencing levels of disharmony, dis-ease, right? Like we've never seen before. And there's so much information that's fragmented. It's not cohesive, right? And healing energy is cohesive. Healing energy is harmonious. Healing energy comes through in a stable way. And what we experience when we're not careful in the world is, we all know that feeling of just feeling like, our nervous system is fragmented and all over the place. So, yes, this is part of the medicine for our time, is just learning how to re-regulate ourselves, reharmonize ourselves when we are in situations that are fragmented. And the most powerful way to change your state is to just go straight to the information and soothe it. And that's why pure consciousness practice, whether it's Zhineng Qigong or others that are out there, is just so powerful.
So after, practice, how long does it take to get to that state? I know everybody's an individual and different, but being able to, you have to practice on a daily basis in order to get into that state, to just kind of smooth the fragmented energy out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a paradox. Having a devotion to something, you get in what you put in, right? Having a daily practice, it helps you to create a harmonious structure faster. So yes, that being said, the more that we build the field, the easier it is for new people to join and catch up. It's sort of, I don't know if you know Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance theory, but it's sort of like that. Someone figures something out just spontaneously through the quantum field. It's now easier for others to figure it out. So, what might have taken me 8 or 9 years to figure out, I believe people can do way faster. So it's really cool. It's not, the healing tools are out there for us. We're not going to be punished or penalized. The universe is there for us. And because so many, we hear about in the news all the bad stuff happening, but what I hear about every day is all this amazing stuff happening, all these people practicing with devotion. And since that's happened, it's so much easier for new students to come on in and join in the field. It used to be that at the medicineless hospital, they did focus on physical movements first. And now it's flipped. Right now, Dr. Pong is recommending starting with pure consciousness with brand new students first, because he says the field is strong enough to support them. And that's awesome. So it's never too late. It's never too hard. It's available to anyone with a prefrontal cortex, right, can engage in this work. We're made for this work. All of us are. And really, like, in some ways, it's as easy as going for a walk by yourself in nature. Right? Like when I first started really accessing, the pure Mingjue state, I realized how similar it was to when I'm just by myself in nature. So it's the most natural thing for us to do. We've forgotten how. Yeah.
It's interesting how you said, right now that the chi field is strong and can support all these new people coming in. Do you think that that's a sign that we are moving forward and, taking another step forward into this golden age that everybody's been talking about for a long time, moving into the Aquarian age, so to speak?
Yeah, it means we have the real potential to create a heaven on earth. It's there. The potential is real and it's there, and you can feel it when you practice. We'll see how it plays out, but it's real. It's there, and it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Mm-hmm.
Poison is always right next to the medicine, and that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah, very, very true.
We got to stabilize. Well, in Zhineng Qigong, we talk a lot about good information. And this is not a spiritual bypass. This is tuning to one of the millions of truths in the universe, but the one that I like is that there is unconditional love out there and that everyone can receive it. And so we really focus on being very careful about the information that we put out there and what we share with each other and what we share with ourselves. So we call it good information, and we try not to kind of get into story spirals of that end nowhere, right? Like, where does that get us? We try to stay away from story. We try to share good information, and good information can be something that sounds bad, right? Like, I had a really hard day yesterday. I wasn't able to maintain my consciousness state, and I yelled at someone, and I feel bad about that. But it can be shared as a hopeful story, right? Like, okay, I had this thing, but then I came back to my practice and I just stayed with it. And even though it didn't feel much better, at least I did it and I actually practiced. Like that's a good information story. Like, you engaged. It wasn't hopeless. So we try to be sort of impeccable with what we put out there and what we put inside of ourselves. And so that's awesome to be part of a community, because it takes a bit coming from the old reference framework where we were all fighting and complaining, and I'm on this side, they're on that side, and they're evil. And it was just like, that's not helpful. That's not healing information. That's highly fragmented. And frankly, like, it's gossip, right? It's not really the truth, right? The truth of all of us is far greater than any of that stuff. So it's helpful to be in a community to sort of get used to, remind each other and, each other, and to get used to receiving good information from other people.
Yeah. It sounds a complete opposite of what's on social media.
Correct.
So then how do they recommend navigating just, being online in general? I mean, the majority of us are online at least like 4 to 5 hours a day minimum.
Yep. So it's a high level practice.
Yeah.
So that's why, we start with our consciousness practice, just stabilizing it within ourselves. Then we practice stabilizing it within a movement practice. And we practice stabilizing it in safe places in our normal daily lives. And this can take a bit, right? And then we practice stabilizing it in the more challenging places. And, we all fail, we all succeed. Interacting with media is one that I'm personally working with right now. Like, can I maintain a Mingjue consciousness state while I am posting on X? And it's tricky, but that's what we need to do, right? And the more that each of us do that, the easier it becomes for everybody else to do it too. Because it's not like we're avoiding life. In fact, in this practice, it's really about going to the heart of everything in life. Like, when I'm practicing my Mingjue state, I'm not going to some safe place away from you. I am like connecting deeper with you. And that's, the way isn't to escape. The way is through. We have to go through it.
Right.
So it's actually like, it's a practice in being like super aware, super connected, like more connected. It's not like we're disconnecting from the bad energy. In Zhineng Qigong, we don't talk about good and bad energy. It's all it doesn't matter, right? And when we connect with it from this pure consciousness level, it doesn't have good and bad with it. So we can be safe in connecting deeper with it. So
just to be clear again, just to recap, Qi in our modern way of describing it is energy, but then it goes deeper than that. It's deeper than energy, chi.
I mean, it's all energy. It's all chi. It's, yeah.
But if you get more of the quantum and like the subatomic particle, you know,
it's all chi.
it's okay.
It's all energy. It's all chi. It's just different levels of fineness.
Okay.
So our physical bodies are made of chi, and it's a very dense form of chi. But then the information level is a very, very fine, open, empty but not empty form of chi. It's something that we can try to discuss in words, and then we got to go experience it.
Okay.
But it's not something that we can currently measure with modern science, and that's sometimes the hang up with people interacting with it. So
is Dr. Pong trying to describe, is that what his research is right now, trying to describe what chi is in a scientific form?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been his life's work, is to try to better describe the theories of consciousness and energy, and our human consciousness and how it relates to the pure chi of the universe, and then applying that, of course, to creating a whole world, a healed world, right?
Yeah. So you had mentioned, and I just would like you to mention it again off when we were speaking privately before the interview, how Qigong is not a religion. Can you go into that a little bit so people are clear?
Yeah, this is really important. Thank you for asking. So Qigong is not a religion. It is the study of consciousness science, of energy science, and it can be applied to literally everything, including all religions. So every single esoteric religion and all traditional spiritual paths, shamanic medicine, the root of all spiritual work is energy work. So what we're studying in Zhineng Qigong is sort of it's like a stripped down, just the basics version of that, which is so cool because you can apply what you learn from theory and from practice in Zhineng Qigong to your Christian church, or to being Jewish, or I practice with people of all religions and no religions, and it can be applied to all of them. I've personally studied a lot of ancient Christianity, and I love taking what I learn in consciousness science and applying it to the old ancient texts and Jesus's teachings. They're the same, and it's brought me so much closer to understanding that religion, which is the religion of my ancestors, and to finding peace and happiness within it. So studying consciousness science is like this key that opens up really any energy work, magic, if you want to do Wicca or witchcraft or be a Christian or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's or study indigenous spirituality. It's all the same, and they were all saying the same things. And it's so cool. For me, it's been like one of my greatest joys is to find that connection and connectivity with everyone on the planet. Because once you realize we're all talking about the same thing, there's no reason for divisions. Right. But Qigong itself is not a religion. That's a big point that Dr. Pong wanted to make. And he is not a prophet. He is not a guru. He's very humble. He, would always say, I'm not healing you. I had to heal all of you, I'd be exhausted. No, we're all in the field together. I'm teaching all of us how to get in this field together. And then you're teaching other people so we can make the field bigger. And then we're all healing each other. So yeah, it's a flat, there's no hierarchy in Qigong. It's completely flat, which is super empowering for everyone involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Very holistic.
Correct.
All encompassing.
Yeah. And I experienced that. It's so healing to experience that in the world consciousness community with Teacher Wei, because really the way that it's set up is that flat, no hierarchy. We're all equal. We're all healers. We're all teachers. We're all practitioners. And it's balm for someone living in the modern world. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very empowering.
Correct.
It gives the power and authenticity back to the individual.
Yeah, that's right.
Which allows them to heal.
Correct. Yeah. Because if you give your power to somebody else, now you can't heal yourself, even if you do it subconsciously without noticing it.
Yeah.
It's really important to bring it back so that you can recognize your own authority, and get help from doctors and whatnot. That's great. That's beautiful. But, we're our own healers primarily.
Yeah. It sounds empowering and exciting, to practice. What message would you like to give everyone? Just for now, like a message for this current moment in time.
That's really wide open. Well, the first thing that came to me from the consciousness realm is that everything belongs. Everyone belongs. Everything belongs.
Any advice you'd like to give anyone or everyone who watches?
Yeah. The advice that wants to come through is that this is for you. Enlightenment is for you. In the modern time, the enlightened ones are all of our everyday people. They're mothers and fathers and, gosh, why not? Bankers, farmers, UPS drivers. That's what is available to us right now. It used to be that you had to eschew your life and go off and live in a cave and find a guru and whatever, but that is not our world right now. That is the past. Maybe that exists. I don't really know, but that's not where the adventure is right now. The adventure is, I'm a mom with 2 kids living in a city, and I'm doing enlightenment practices, and you can too. Everyone can.
Thank you. Where can we find your work?
I have a website. It's called intothehum.com, and I'm also on X at intothehum. I also have a YouTube page, which is just at Megan Kaun. And on my YouTube page, I am starting from scratch a beginner series of consciousness study. So I just posted my first video this week, and every week I'm going to post a new video that will, for free, teach everyone the basic steps to consciousness practice. And it's super simple, and we can do it together. So hope you check it out.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan, for joining the show.
Thanks, Ani.
Thank you.